Hey guys, I got a fun video for you today. We're going to look at the old Intel LGA 775 socket T platform. I've actually got a motherboard here that we're going to look at together. I'm going to hold it up for you. You probably remember these. This is an LGA 775 ASRock G41M-S platform. It's got a Pentium 2.6 GHz dual-core CPU, support for DDR2 up to 1066 MHz. You can put up to 8 gigs in it. And believe it or not, it can still run Windows 7 64-bit if you're so inclined. There was perhaps no CPU socket that could handle such a wide range of different CPUs as this one. This platform began way back in 2004 and fit processors all the way up until 2012. Can you think of any other CPU socket that lasted 8 to 9 years? There were lonely single-core Celerons nearing 1 GHz all the way up to quad-core 4 GHz monsters that could run on this singular socket. This was also the first socket that had pins instead of holes. AMT to this day still has sockets with holes, but this is when Intel transitioned to pins in the socket. It's a debate of which one you like more than the other. I personally have worked with both, and they both have advantages and disadvantages, so that's up to you. But nonetheless, this motherboard that I just showed you, I just took out of my son's computer. I replaced it with a Sandy Bridge platform that I had myself just retired. This board still looks great, still runs fine, all the capacitors are still in good shape. But it does have some limitations that finally led to me to retire it after all this time. But let's have a little bit of a trip down memory lane and look at this board. First thing I want to show you again when I hold it up to you is notice how it still has IDE support and a floppy connector. So if you have an old PATA hard drive or CD drive, this board natively supports it, or even an old floppy drive. Fun fact, I even ran a 5¼ inch floppy off of an LGA 775 platform one time. It could only read with a special adapter I got overseas. It couldn't write. But this old surveyor that I was working with, he was thrilled that the computer I built him could do that. Another good reason to have a working LGA 775 platform is because it was the last platform to natively support Windows XP. A quad or even a dual-core CPU near 3 GHz with 2 gigs or more of memory Windows XP is the fastest native platform available for that operating system. Why would anyone need or want XP anymore? This is simple. There are many older business applications that do not like the later incarnations of Windows. A good example was about 3.5 years ago. I had a lumber yard that had a paint mixing program that worked with their very expensive paint mixer, and it only ran in XP. But I had one of these platforms, still brand new in the box. I always managed to keep one. So he was in great shape and thrilled, and so was I. I was there to buy paint not too long ago, and he's still running that machine. Again, dual-core gigahertz and XP, 3 GHz, something like that. It's as good as it gets. This is a 2.6, but that would be sufficient. Another thing I want to show you is that even though it's got IDE and the floppy drive, notice, even with being a small board, it's got 4 SATA ports, 2 PCI slots, and a PCI Express slot. That's quite nice for a board of this age. It still gives you the flexibility to add in a relatively modern graphics card, some other expansion cards, and up to 4 drives. The built-in audio is HD audio. The LAN is only 10100, but it does work. And all the USB ports on board are 2.0. There's only 4 in the back that are available there, but there's also 4 in a front header. So there's 8 integrated USB 2.0 ports. That's not too bad. Now, one disappointing fact is that the integrated video on this board is VGA only, and it's one output only. And it's based on the infamous Intel 865 Northbridge chipset integrated graphics, otherwise known as Intel Extreme Graphics. Awful. If you think integrated graphics today is bad, you have no clue how bad it used to be. But thank goodness for that PCI Express slot. There were some boards in this era that, you see where the PCI Express slot here is on this board? Right there? It just wouldn't be there. There'd be PCI slots, but there wouldn't be a PCI Express slot. This was a cost-saving measure on the very cheap motherboard manufacturers that really would cost the end user, because then you were stuck with a PCI graphics card, which Oh boy. So anyway, not a good thing for those situations, but this board specifically had the PCI Express slot. I always bought boards that had PCI Express slots, even if I didn't use them. The RAM is only DDR2, and it's at up to 1066 megahertz, but I always ran 667 megahertz. The real reason why I retired this platform isn't really due to CPU speed, but rather because DDR2 memory is getting more expensive, and getting to 8 gigabytes to run a 64-bit OS competently is not that wise of an investment. That's mainly why I swapped out my son's platform. But nonetheless, I will keep this if I end up needing it, or to toy with it with an old XP or maybe even a Vista 32 build. Vista is going to be retired officially in 29 days, but it's still a part of computer history, and it'd be neat to have a machine running around that still had it. Another thing is that this would be the last platform to actually separate the North Bridge and South Bridge chips, right here and right here respectively. All further iterations would have North Bridge integrated into the CPU, which AMD did before Intel in 2003 with the release of the Athlon 64. This was a good thing all around, though. For one, it made integrated graphics and memory access way faster from the onset, and motherboards much cheaper. The PS2 keyboard and mouse ports are still useful. See that right there? That's nice right there. I tell you, there's still times where having a PS2 keyboard when your USB ports for whatever reason aren't functioning, that port always works, and that is great. I kind of wish to this day that all computers had these PS2 ports. I still keep a couple of PS2 keyboards around for that reason. Overall, it's not a bad board. You can still run Windows 7 64-bit. I don't know about Windows 10. I've never tried it. But if you give it enough RAM and a decent graphics card in that PCI Express slot, it's still okay. The real issue, though, is that the memory is getting more expensive. It's hard to equip it with 8 gigs of RAM to make it modern, and also, anyway, it is aging. This platform is best for replacing failed ones in older computers, or to keep it around as a fun novelty. But it's now 2 generations behind in many areas, so it's seen its day. Well, thanks for taking this trip down memory lane with me. I'll put out some more old stuff, and we'll look at it again soon. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.